Okay, so you wanted to go see Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City.
What the hell happened here?
The Umbrella Corporation's been experimenting on this town since we were kids.
Show me your hands! What the
And all I have to say is, don't do that. If you're not a Resident Evil fan, don't do it. If you are a Resident Evil fan, definitely don't do it, okay? What this film is, how you could describe the plot is, the greatest hits versions of all the iconic scenes from the first two films. We have Chris, Jill, Wesker, our favorites, going into the Spencer Mansion to investigate the weird stuff going around there, right? And then we have Claire, Leon, and Chief Irons at the Raccoon City Police Department during a zombie infestation. And that's basically it. That's all you need to know for the plot. Please don't watch it. It's fucking terrible. Okay? So let's I'm gonna go in chronological order of all the plot details. If you don't want to be spoiled, you know, you can turn away now or turn away any time where if I go any further into the plot. But let's start off, because the film was not completely terrible right from the get-go. I mean, almost, but the opening visual was definitely gave me like these creepy vibes. We have Lisa Trevor from the RE1 remake make an appearance around little children too, so it's definitely a little bit frightening, right, in that circumstance. And I thought this might have been, it gave me the impression that this film might be more subtle and more going towards the horror realm, but that completely gets completely demolished by the introduction of Claire, Chris, and Leon, and their backstories. Like their backstories are so explicitly told. They have no way of communicating dialogue in a very natural way. It's just, oh, aren't you that guy who's this thing, and here's your whole backstory and history and all these things that went on with your life. It's like, oh my god, it's honestly terrible. But as terrible as those backstories are and as explicit as they are, we move on to Jill, and Jill's just the most wildly unlikable character, I think, in the whole film. I'm gonna say she's the worst character. At one point, she's at a diner with Wesker, and for a joke, she aims a real gun at an unconscious officer's head, just for a joke. And Wesker, of all people, the villain of the series, has the most human reaction, the most realistic reaction to seeing this, which is freaking out. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why would you do that? That's insane. Like, put that down. It's so crazy it coming from Wesker, because the roles should be reversed there, right? Because, you know, he's a villain. But moving on, as bad as Jill is, we also have Claire joining her for unlikability, but I don't know. Jill with the psychoticness gets a little higher, but Claire is a little bit more complicated, because we start off here with her hitching a ride with a truck driver, and they accidentally hit a girl on the road. It's a dark and rainy night, and then while they're not looking, after they go and investigate, I think they're just looking off for a second, and the girl gets up and walks towards the forest, and the truck driver is freaking out. He's in complete denial. He's like, what was she doing out in the middle of the road? Oh, she got up and left, so she must be fine. I don't know, whatever. Must be a crackhead or something. Meanwhile, Claire is like, no, we gotta get help. We gotta get an ambulance. We gotta get police involved. We got to do something. Like, she actually seems concerned, but once she finds this guy is like too far in denial, this truck driver, she kind of plays it off. It's like, okay, fine, let's just go. And now this is an important part. It takes place in 1998, just like the original games do. And I had thought, like, okay, she must not have a cell phone or anything on her, so that's why she's playing along. And then once they get into town, she'll call the cops and, ditch the driver. But instead, what she does, we completely forget that whole situation happened for a while. Instead, she breaks into her brother's home, Chris Redfield, and I'm just thinking, like, what if Chris, like, thinks she's, like, a robber or something like that? Like, how could she not, like, anticipate that? And she starts playing around with his stuff, putting on a football helmet and all this. And it's like Chris eventually introduces himself, and they have this bantering, how she disappeared 5 years ago. And then finally, she offhandedly mentions that the girl that got hit by the truck And then we forget about her because even Chris, like, he says, like, oh, we should do something about her. Like, what the hell? And then he forgets about it too, for whatever reason, because it's not important anymore. Instead, she shows him a videotape of a man disclosing that Umbrella had a lab leak.
Watch this.
I'm afraid, Claire. I'm afraid of what they're gonna do to this town. You gotta help us, Claire. Let the world know what's really going on.
With no evidence, like, there's nothing to really corroborate this guy's story. Corroborate? Whatever. There's nothing to make this guy's story seem truthful to Chris, from Chris's point of view. Chris rightly points out, it's like, what if this guy is just a crazy, dangerous person? What if he's just messing with you? And, okay, like, you know, in a meta sense, the film is called Resident Evil, right? We know what's going to happen. But her only way of convincing her brother is a videotape with nothing that can prove that, like, the guy wasn't revealing anything that you couldn't just say randomly. Like, he just basically says, like, Umbrella did it, there was a lab leak, the Raccoon City's in danger. Like, anybody could say that. Like, there's nothing specific in the information he tells them that would really mattered. And yeah, so that's completely stupid. And you know what? I was about to check out in this film. I was just completely zoned out. I wasn't gonna think about it. It's just like completely brain dead. But then we have Chief Brian Irons, and he is great. He is every police chief from every kind of buddy cop film. Just angry, cantankerous, mad at his underlings. But I can't deny it was fun watching him roast everyone, and it seemed like the actors had fun with it, and I think that translated well to the audience. And so that was like the one, like just a twinkle of hope that this could be something good. I especially liked him roasting Leon. Speaking of Leon, there's a point where we see him fall asleep. They establish like it's his first night of the job. He's probably not used to night shifts, so he keeps constantly falling asleep in every scene he's in. And he's listening to this pop music, and he's at the front desk of the police station, and I'm like, okay. And then in the same frame, they kind of pan a little bit. We see a truck barreling down the road, the same truck from that driver that hit the woman, and he had gotten infected. And just before he hits the station, he swerves and it crashes and it explodes, and he's fully zombified, and he's on fire. And he's walking into the police station, and lucky for Leon, yeah, he got shot in the head. And I'm like, oh, it just snapped in my head. I'm like, is this whole film a joke? Is the director doing this the whole film ironically? Like, if this is the rest of the film, I'm totally down for it. Like, I know maybe some people like Resident Evil being taken seriously, but this movie was so dull up until this point. I gotta point out, it's almost 45 minutes before this happens. 45, like just around 45 minutes before the first person shoots a zombie, and I'm just like, it's either dull or they make the first zombie kill like a complete joke. And I'm just like, who's this made for? Because, like, at least I thought the RE2 remake plot was terrible for taking itself too seriously, but at least it was consistently like a consistent tone. But and at least you had the action start off right away. You're in that gas station, that tutorial gas station where you shoot at least one zombie in the head, and you know, you're playing the game for the gameplay. I mean, I'd be very disappointed if I was playing for the story, but here we have in this film like sincere exposition dumped on us for over 30 minutes of just like people talking about themselves, and it's done terribly if I haven't mentioned that already. But after this particular scene, I thought like, come on, keep up this hilarious tone, because this will be great. Just let it be the Brian Irons film, okay? But no, we go back to Jill, Chris, and Wesker going off to the Spencer mansion. And while they're outside, this is another psychotic scene with Jill. There's a crow that's squawking. It's just squawking. That's all it's doing, okay? It's a bird, all right? And Jill shoots it with her gun. And then she starts like giggling about it. Like absolute crazy person. Like it's completely psychotic. Okay, so I'm already checked out on her character, and it's checked out like, and if the, you know what, let me skip to another character because now I got on her. Leon, right? I'll bring up Leon's character. I haven't mentioned him a lot other than the scenes he's in, but let's talk about him as a character. He is a completely ineffectual character. He's sleeping all the time. He shot his partner in the back by accident. He needed his father to cover for him. None of the other characters take him seriously and has to be constantly saved by them, like the chief saves him and Claire saves him several times. He never seems to grasp the situation he's in. He never seems like he knows what is going on in any given scenario. He has no the object permanence. And yeah, most of the part, he just gets dragged along wherever Claire is going. And one particularly embarrassing moment for his character. There's this, we find the guy from the crazy man from the video is locked up in the RDP. And he convinces Leon to come over to him. He's in a cell. He's, okay? This guy's in a cell. He grabs Leon and steals his gun, and it's so terribly done. It's so embarrassing. Like, Leon's just a complete fool. He's an idiot in this whole film. Terrible. Like, they must hate Leon, the character. Like, I would never call any of these characters great in their video games, like RE1 and 2. They're not, like, amazing, well, like, deep characters. But I would at least call them competent, right? But they don't even give Leon that. It's awful. And now let's skip on to the action scenes, because this is going to be most of the Spencer Mansion, most of the RDP action that happens, okay? What's going to happen is there's going to be a person on one side, and there's going to be a zombie on the other end of a hallway. And they're going to shoot that zombie, and then that's it. And they're not going to do it in any creative ways. They're not going to deal with it in any particularly exceptional like action scene, like, oh my God. No, none of that happens, nothing creative. Even they introduce a liquor out of nowhere. They're just like, oh, it's a liquor, you know, like if you know the video games, you know that character, but you're not gonna get anything out of that otherwise it's just a weird monster that pops up for no reason. And it's shot the exact same way, where, you know, point, shoot, boom, 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 boom. And I don't believe any moment in the action our protagonists need to outwit their opponent or overcome anything. Like, if a character looks like they're going to die, usually someone will pop out of nowhere conveniently to save them, always. And there's like one scene where Lisa Trevor becomes that person who randomly saves them, and she kills the liquor in at least a really cool way, I guess, for 2 seconds. But like, that's about it. That's all you get out of Lisa Trevor. So barring the action, it's all the exact same. It's all what I've described. You'll notice anytime they zoom in on a character's face, like they're gonna die, you're just waiting for the other person to pop in and kill whatever's attacking them. And we finally get to a shockingly decent dramatic scene when Wesker confronts Birkin. And the actor for Wesker is he does a really good job, and it's just like his subtle actions here, because he portrays a guy holding a gun at Birkin and his family really well, and he's kind of desperate. Like, it doesn't come across like he wants to shoot them. He just wants to get the G virus. And then for Birkin's side, it's kind of comedic almost, but you kind of get what they're trying to portray with Birkin. So you have his daughter and his wife on one side, and then on a table elsewhere you have the G virus. And Birkin stands in front of the G virus, like shielding it, while his family's off to the side. He doesn't give a shit. And yeah, they're both in a desperate situation. And then, you know, Birkin's not gonna give in. He pulls out a gun. Wesker shoots him in the chest a few times, and then Birkin's wife pulls the gun on Wesker, and Wesker's forced to shoot her in the head. And after that scene, again, he portrays this really well. This actor who plays Wesker, he shows like regret and guilt, even though his life was on the line. He's still not cool with what he did, and that comes through. And Sherry Birkin has done well too, the little girl, when she's like hiding terrifying. And eventually, just guns keep constantly getting pulled on each other because she picks up the gun, the little girl, Cher, and Wesker's forced to point it at her as well. And now here's where they could have. It's a little too late situation, but Jill is forced to shoot Wesker off screen. She just pops up, much like how everyone else gets saved in this film, and she shoots Wesker, and she has a good moment of grief, but unfortunately it's just undercut by all of her earlier scenes where I mentioned she looks like a complete psychopath. Okay? All right, and now that scene was all right up until the end there, where I didn't feel much for Jill because she's just a maniac. But then they go for another kind of emotional scene where Birkin, it's revealed that he pumped the G virus into him, and he turns into his first form from the RE2, and he confronts Chris, and him and Chris are supposed to have this history together. Like Birkin helped him out because Chris and Claire were in an orphanage, and he helped them go through college and all this stuff. But it's supposed to have this emotional weight to it, and they just didn't share enough scenes for really to have any impact whatsoever. Not enough going on. And well, yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, there's too much going on in this film. But anyways, same thing happens here with any action scene, just like I mentioned. You think Chris is gonna die, Claire comes out of nowhere, shoots him, and then they think they've killed Birkin at this point. And all our heroes hop aboard the train, just like at the end of RE2, and they have to face off with the final form of G-Virus. We just skip the two forms in between, and we have Leon pulling a rocket launcher. And at this point, I would not be surprised if he was holding it backwards, launches it, and destroys part of the train in front, behind him, because they've made him so ineffective this whole film. And then we had to have Jill pop in and come to actually save everyone, because they just made him that useless. But no, he actually does end up killing the G-Virus final form. And again, like, the film just comes across as so awkward, because I mentioned those couple comedic scenes, and I'm like, one of them was just talking, so it was fine. It's just them cracking jokes at each other. The other one was like completely bizarre scene for this type of film that was taking itself seriously all the way throughout, with the on fire truck zombie trucker. Like, that one's so bizarre. But then they do another one again. So we know at the end of RE2 they're launching nukes on Raccoon City to blow it all up, to get rid of the infestation of zombies. Hopefully they'll wipe out all the virus. And they have this cow in the foreground, okay? And it gets lifted by the explosion and flies off screen while mooing. And I don't know what it's trying to accomplish anymore. But of course, all our heroes make it out. And I gotta say, oh man, that's our end of our movie. But like, this film just had, like, as much as those couple of scenes were a bright spark of hope, it's like this, other than that, it's like this movie has no charm whatsoever and has way too much going on. I did not think the plots of RE1 and 2 were super complicated or anything, but it just goes to show you can't shove two plots, even if they're like really simple video games. You can't just shove them together in a 1.5 hour film. And I also gotta say, the film is cheap. You can tell the film is cheap. They should have worked within their budget. They should have made it a bottle film. Just like make it one at the Spencer Mansion. Maybe you're uncovering stuff with Chris and Jill as they realize, like, you go from simple zombies to like more complex mutant zombie things. The zombie spiders. Maybe skip out on the zombie shark, but maybe you can have it behind a tank at least, right? But point being is, like, they just should have avoided spreading themselves out too thin. There's some really nice sets that they managed to replicate from the film, from the video games, but that's not worth it. Like, just stick to one location, stick to one plot going on. The quality of the talent and the director just weren't enough to handle so much going on at all at once. And I would say you're better off, as crazy as this might sound, you're better off watching the two Paul W.S. Anderson films again, like the first Resident Evil and Resident Evil Apocalypse. They're not good. They're not good, okay? But it would be difficult for me to believe that most people wouldn't find them more entertaining. Screw quality of acting, screw quality of writing, directing, filmmaking in general. Screw all that. We're just talking about hey, you gathered a bunch of friends to watch a film, go ahead and watch Resident Evil Apocalypse. At least you're bound to have a good time with it. It'd be hard not to believe that. With this film, I just don't see that. Maybe outside of those 2 scenes, I see a few chuckles, maybe. Like maybe kind of like they blow air out of their nose, like maybe like that. But like, yeah, no, other than that, go back to the old films, unfortunately. Oh my goodness. I can't believe I'm saying that. But here we are with Welcome to Raccoon City. I can't believe this. I don't even know where to end this. Don't watch the film. Don't watch it. Please, please, please. Thank you.